Hey, 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 guys. Welcome to the Oil Runners broadcast. Sorry, I got my little cottage cheese. Um, but this is Kristen All Love, your host, and today we have a a retired teacher, which is kind of cool. Scott Hopkins, Mr. Scott Hopkins. I believe he is literally from California, so teaching in California. We'll find out his life. But he also does photography, and he also um, is a sports writer as well. So we're just going to find out who he is. But if you want to be on the broadcast, it's oilrunnersservices@gmail.com. You can email us here and we will look into everything and place you on. And we want to hear your testimony, what your gift is, whatever it is that you have, we got you. Okay. And we don't troll anybody. We're not about that. We're here to help others learn, inspire, grow, and to the best version, into the best version of themselves. Okay. So everybody from kids 3 on up can watch the show. So I will let y'all know what is going on in the next few things. We also have other people that are coming on as well. We're putting that in the arsenal. I just have to get the list going, um, and doing what we got to do. Okay, so don't worry, we're gonna be full for the next couple months at least. So get your time in. Okay, let's bring them in. Okay, well, we have Mr. Hopkins in play. How are you doing, Mr. Hopkins?
I'm doing just great, and please call me Scott, as I will call you Christina.
Okay, all right, Scott, thank you for that. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a fourth generation San Diegan, which is rather unusual. My great grandfather came to San Diego in the 1880s after he retired from the Wabash Railroad. And back in the day, that was a very, very well-known railroad. A song was written about it called the Wabash Cannonball, which I think was one of their trains. But he got the gold watch and the retirement and moved out to San Diego. And when he arrived, he bought huge amounts of property in San Diego and started building houses, subdivisions on those. Unfortunately, in the Depression, he lost most of it. And so instead of me being a billionaire speaking to you, I'm a retired teacher. So life took a little twist there. But my mom and dad were both native San Diegans. My dad's 100th birthday would have been coming up this next January. I was born in 1949, Mercy Hospital in San Diego, and I've been in San Diego all my life. I went to Point Loma High School, which I might mention later on. Very, very good high school in San Diego. And San Diego State University, not once but twice. Bachelor's degree in 1971 in social sciences, and a master's degree in 1981 in counseling and guidance. So that
Cool.
was my background there. Um, Started teaching in 1972 in San Diego Unified School District, and at the end of the first year, every single first and second year teacher in the district, regardless of how great a job you'd done or anything, was all pink slipped. And I
What?
had student taught in Chula Vista. I got a call over the summer. How would you like to come down and teach summer school in Chula Vista? Yes, I'd be glad to. So I went down to Chula Vista and I ended up getting a job there the next year for a man who had been diagnosed with cancer previous school year and was transferring to this school called Kellogg School and basically became so ill he never made it. I opened the classroom for him, talked to him at his trailer home with his wife. He'd doze off and she'd say, "Honey, you're talking to Scott about opening your classroom." And, "Oh, yes, yes, yes. Don't smile until after the first month." He was an old school guy. And I opened the classroom for him. He passed away in October of that year. And I got a contract in Chula Vista that was written back to the first day of school. And I was in Chula Vista from 1973 to 2009 when I retired. So a long, long time in the Chula Vista School District. So that's kind of my background there. Since then, I've created for myself a second career. I started writing and covering sports mainly for my alma mater, Point Loma High School. And my work appears in a newspaper called the Peninsula Beacon, a community newspaper that covers Point Loma. And since then, I've won a number of writing and photography awards. And I've been doing that for the last 15 years since I retired. So I've kind of got a teaching background, but also a news media background, a little bit of both.
That's pretty cool. That's a lot. Wow.
Oh, thank you.
Like, yeah. So what kind of photography do you do?
Well, I started doing photography, long story, back in the eighth grade. I always liked photography, and I had those little brownie cameras that most of your listeners might not even recognize, little plastic body cameras with a roll of film inside. And I started shooting photographs, and took my money I'd saved up to Sears and Roebuck back in the day and bought a little kit that allowed me to develop film at home. And so I mixed the chemicals real carefully by the directions. I went out in our garage and stuffed towels under all the doors so it was completely pitch black and
Mm,
started processing black and white film. And from there, I actually shot a neighbor's wedding when I was in the eighth grade. Shot it in black and
wow.
white, went down to a camera store in San Diego and bought a special type of black and white paper that had a texture on it for weddings and printed all the pictures, put them all into an album, took them up and delivered them. So from eighth grade on, I've been doing photography. Um, but then, kind of a part of our family background, we never had the nicest stuff, never had the expensive things. And most of my time with the newspaper, at least for a long time, I was using a little $300 camera that had a real good zoom, a 60 power zoom on it that I could, shoot a lot of things with. But I finally, about 5 years ago, went out and decided to become a real photographer and invested $6,000 into a camera body and two lenses that are more professional level of quality. And it's made a big difference. Shots are a lot better, able to freeze the action better. And so now I kind of work alongside the pros rather than being the guy trying to make good pictures with a cheap camera.
I get it. I was like that with the Iditarod, with my
Yeah.
little DSLR, the beginner cameras, with all the pros being here with those lenses. Like,
Some of them still have bigger lenses than I do, but I look at the local daily newspaper, the San Diego Union Tribune, and my photographs are as good as theirs are. So I feel good about that. I'm getting action as good as what they're running in their paper, and I've actually won some awards for photography in sports. So that makes me feel like I feel pretty confident now when I go out with my camera.
that's pretty cool. What's your favorite sport to photograph?
Well, it would probably be football because of the nonstop action.
Hmm.
Although I'm 75 years old now, and when I'm on the sideline with all the players and they hand the ball off, the guy's running the ball straight at me, I turn around and run. I don't want to get clobbered by these guys and you know, tackling some guy out of bounds. And I tell the players around me, listen, if they knock me down, just call 911. Don't even bother. Just call 911 and get me out of here. But all in fun. But it's football is probably the most fun because of the action and how you can freeze, great expressions, things like that. Baseball is a lot of fun, but the action doesn't happen all that often. You wait and wait and wait for some action until something good happens and hope you capture it. If you miss it, you wait longer for more action. So football is probably
Right.
number one.
Learn to tuck and roll and kind of just rolling all with them, huh? Rolling with the punches,
And hopefully there are no serious punches.
right? Like, Oh, and we're gonna go back to teaching. We're just gonna go all over the place. What was your favorite memory, or what? Well, let's put it. What was your favorite grade to teach?
That's an easy one. The most of my career I taught sixth grade. And in California, our system is the kids go kindergarten through sixth at an elementary school, typically seventh, eighth, and ninth at a middle school, and then ninth through 12th at a high school. So sixth grade was fun. It was their last year of elementary school. They were more intelligent. You could go take, higher level topics to them. I tried to make it a super fun year. I did a lot of field trips, a lot of things that were off campus, fun, after hours things. In
Mm,
Chula Vista at that time, the kids got a 1 week trip to a camp up in the San Diego mountains as part of their schooling. It was called sixth grade camp, and they went away from mom and dad on Monday morning and didn't come back until Friday afternoon. And they had to bring, a sleeping bag and changes of clothes and things like that, and take their first showers in front of their peers and all kinds of things. But they went on nature hikes, they did arts and crafts, they did animal tracking up in the forest. They found artifacts of Indian tribes that lived in the area. It was a very, very good program. And for a lot of the kids, that would probably be what they would say was one of their favorite memories of school was sixth grade camp. Unfortunately, over the years, the school district used to pay half of the cost of it, and they eventually backed out and decided that it wasn't worth the expenditure or whatever. And so most schools now do not go to camp anymore, but we did every single year, never missed a beat. And
oh.
that was a great memory for myself and everybody, all the kids included.
Are you still in contact with your kids?
Yes, what has been the best thing for that particular um, issue is Facebook. I know a lot of the young kids don't go on Facebook anymore, but old people like myself do. And I have gotten in touch with a number of kids on Facebook. And so I started my own Facebook group. It's called Mr. Hopkins's Way After School Club. And I found a photograph of a school bus. That's the profile photo on it. And we've now
Uh-huh.
got about 80 members of
Wow,
the group. The very first kids I had in sixth grade are now turning 62 years old this year.
that's crazy.
That a lot of people find that really hard to believe because of the fact that I'm 75. But when I first started teaching, I was right out of the university. I was 22 years old, and the kids were about 12 years old. So that difference is only 10 or 11 years. And
So it's like having a brother.
these kids are like, well, they were like brothers and sisters back then, and even now they're senior citizens. They're getting ARP invitations in the mail, right? And getting senior discounts at restaurants and things. So, and I am in touch with some of those kids, as many as probably more than any are some of the very first ones at my first school in Chula Vista.
My gosh, that's gotta be a good photograph to do one day if you ever get a chance to do it, to have everybody come in together and do a class for, Mr. Hopkins's students' photograph.
Like a reunion or something. We've
Yeah.
talked about that. The hardest part would be that we have to find a venue for it. On top of that, the kids that came would not likely know each other because they were all from different years and different schools sometimes. So that's kind of the tough thing. So we basically just kind of stay in touch on Facebook. I announce any little news about a person that I find, on the Facebook so that people know about that, and I just try and spread the good news around and keep everybody in touch a little bit.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Like, that's really cool. Man. Now it's on to the sports. What was your favorite story to capture in the sports news?
Oh, best sports story. Wow. That's tough. The ones that I like to think of are ones that have an emotional tie to them, an emotional element.
Hmm.
I'm trying to think of one like that. Um, Probably, I can't think of a great one there, but I can think of ones in other categories. But this one kid who was a freshman pitcher on the baseball team was doing well, and I guess he was on JV as a sophomore. So the coach called him up at home and told him, "Hey," his name was Matthew. "Hey, Matthew, boy, they need some pitching help down on the freshman team. They want you to be demoted back to the freshman team." And he was kind of like stunned, of course, and like, "What?" And the coach said, "No." He goes, "Actually," he goes, "you're being called up to varsity." So that was a neat story as far as him, getting the news that he was being promoted. And I did a
Mm.
story on his promotion to varsity, trying to kind of give the community the feel of what it's like when you're a kid and that call finally comes that you made it to the varsity and things. And he ended up going up to the varsity, and the first game he pitched a complete game shutout.
Wow.
And last year, as a junior, he pitched in the local championship game and threw a complete game, one hit shutout in the championship game to win the CIF, what's our called CIF trophy for our
Mm.
school, Point Loma. This kid also goes in summertime to Atlanta area, and he's in a thing called the Hank Aaron Baseball Camp. And it's named after Hank Aaron, of course, who's passed away. But it's got all these former major leaguers who work with it turns out it's young black kids who are up and coming in the sport of baseball. And he's been selected to go 2 years in a row. And he told me they pay his round trip air, his boarding, food, everything. And
Oh,
sometimes they give him gloves or give him things to take back as well. So that's kind of it has a little bit of an emotional touch to it, but you know, s- sports doesn't have as many of those kind of stories that I can think of off the top of my head. There have been so many stories over the years.
wow, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So why was it sports and not like a different genre of writing? What inspired you to do the sports?
Well, sporting was kind of my natural interest, so sports was an easy one to start with. When I went to San Diego State as an undergraduate, excuse me, I was a journalism major. And my goal, my big plan in life was to be a sportscaster on television. Well, back in that day, they only had one college football game on a Saturday, one professional game on a Sunday, and that was it. And as you know, and your audience knows now, every college game is broadcast, every professional game is broadcast, even high school's broadcast. So the need for sportscasters multiplied by thousands. So I would have been in good shape, but when I got to the class in news writing, the professor would walk in, put an assignment on the blackboard, and in 50 minutes, the end of the class, you had to figure out what the news story was about, write the story, type it out on the old manual typewriters, and have it on his desk in less than an hour. Well, everybody in the class back then pulled out cigarettes and started smoking. And I thought I was going to die. I had asthma as a kid. I've never smoked, don't like being around smokers. And I actually went and changed my major over the fact that I thought my career would be spent around in smoky rooms like that,
Oh,
and went into teaching. So, anyway, sports had always been an interest. As far as the writing goes for the newspaper, I've won awards even in categories of science, breaking news, um, all kinds of different categories that I see through the students at the school, see that they're doing or find out something interesting about a kid. One example was about 5 years ago, there was a kid, he and his father developed some type of a device they could put on the hull of a sailboat and actually make the sailboat go faster without weighing it down or anything. So this boy and his father actually went to the US Patent Office and got this little device patented so they would own it then in the future could market it. And I don't know how they've done with their marketing, but I did a story on this sailboat device that was marketed. Another group of students was doing a robotics competition. And this is a situation where they have to build a robot, make it respond to their verbal directions, and then perform a task. And it's at the national competition. So the students, everything was in the garage of a San Diego fire captain, battalion chief. And he gave the kids keys to his garage, and they
Mhm.
had notebooks, and they were free to come over anytime, day or night, they wanted to work on the robot. The only thing was they had to make sure they locked the garage up, but also they had to write what they had done in a notebook so that everybody would understand what changes had been made.
Oh,
These
okay.
these kids went on to go to Houston, Texas, to the old Astrodome and win the national championship in robotics, um,
Wow.
based on all that they had done. So that made a great story. And on top of that, one thing it does, it gives good PR to Point Loma High School. You know, people that are looking at the newspaper go, wow, that school's got some great programs. And
Yeah.
that helps a great deal. So the stories I've done are not just sports. And I'm always looking for something else, always looking for a new angle, a new situation. There's one developing right now that people have said because of the current election issues and things that are going on, and this is the 2024 election, if you're listening to this at a later time, they said that maybe I should hold off on this story till after the election. But a boy just showed up at Point Loma High School who is, I believe, a sophomore. He, his mother, and I think two sisters walked from Venezuela to Mexico. It took them, I think they said, 6 months to walk the entire distance. Then from some part of Mexico, they got a flight to Tijuana, crossed the border, and they're being sponsored by a church in San Diego. And this boy is a baseball player. So to me, this story of walking from Venezuela to get to the United States is an incredible story. But people are saying you should probably wait till after the election because immigration is a hot topic. So, but there's the kind of story I look for and hope I can find out there. And even if it's not at
Well,
school, even not at school, it can be out in the community too, of course.
right. Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of stories out there, so it's just one popping up in your in your hands somewhere.
Well, and
Uh,
in our local newspaper does almost no local news anymore. Local news is almost gone. So our little newspaper is the one of the only sources of news for a lot of these people. Um, One time I remember well, first off, when I turned 16, I bought a little device that let me listen to the police radios. And I used to drive around and listen or at home listen and go photograph news events and take them down to the local newspaper, and they ran them in the newspaper for the whole city of San Diego. So as I got older and all these things have changed, now I just listen in my car, and I still try and chase stories down. So one time I was listening to my police scanner, and the police were following a stolen car. And this guy wasn't driving fast. He was just driving along at the normal speed limit. And there's more and more police cars behind this guy. So pretty soon they're
okay.
trying to pull him over in this area called Ocean Beach, part of San Diego where I grew up. And he's
Uh,
just driving up and down all the streets real slow. And there's all these, there's like 15 police cars behind him at this point, all with their sirens on and things like this. Everybody's coming out on their porches, coming out of restaurants to see what's going on. And this big parade of police cars goes by, chasing and following this guy. So finally he turned down a dead end street. And I thought, oh, they're going to catch him. So I tore up the street, parked in a handicap spot, thought I was going to maybe get a ticket, and ran up, and I got a
right.
picture of the police. This guy was bent over the hood of the police car and they're handcuffing him. He had this real angry look on his face. So I got the award from the San Diego Press Club for best breaking news photograph for that one.
Nice.
And just these silly little stories and things that happen, and they can turn into maybe something exciting or fun. But
Yeah. So with those kind of things in the journalism world, um, it, it's a right to be able to take those photographs, right? Or you have to like physically ask, or like how do you not get with getting those kinds of breaking news photos?
well, the standard now is that when you're in public, you have no expectation of privacy. And
Okay.
so therefore, anything in public land or space is considered open to journalists or videographers or whoever. And there have been times when people will challenge the videographer, and the police tell them they're just doing their business, leave them alone. So that's how works. If it's in private, then it's different. Do you mind if I come in? Do you mind if I shoot some photos? That type of thing.
So like outside of the house, it's free. Inside the house, it's definitely got to ask.
Right, or inside a
Like if
business, something like that. And there have been some businesses that don't want any cameras inside, and some that, sure, come on inside. They want to show what the robber did to their place, knocked all their stuff on the shelf, on the ground, off the shelves or whatever. Just depends on the business owners, I guess.
Okay. Have you ever felt when you were first doing the photography for that stuff, felt like not guilty, but just it's like, oh, I shouldn't shoot this, or like eh.
Well, things that are tough to shoot, I suppose that would be a situation where it's like a traffic accident and somebody was seriously injured.
Mhm.
Um, and maybe they're being taken away on a gurney, and you shoot a photograph that shows part of their face or something that was bloody or whatever. And there's times when, yes, the things that happen are not pleasant, but sharing those can have a good effect on some people who might not realize the seriousness of drunk driving or the seriousness of speeding or
Mhm.
uh, driving, without being cautious or whatever, without your seatbelt, whatever the case might be. So those are tough ones. And the people that shoot TV news deal with that a lot more than I do. And it's hard to get a good breaking news story now because our area of San Diego is so big that, by the time you get there, a lot of things are over. So,
Right.
yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, because I'm definitely interested in that journalistic piece. It's yeah, wow.
Yeah, I wish I had an arm
Do you
here.
have any journalism?
Oh, just a second. Let me go off camera here.
Okay, we'll still be
Here's
here.
here's one of my first place plaques from the press club.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Congrats on that.
yeah. The first place gets a plaque. Second and third get a certificate. I just pulled this out of a pile of my head here. I don't mean a pile, but this is a first place for sports writing. This particular one, and this from the year of 2023. But anyway, so
Well,
uh,
congratulations on that.
once more, well, thank you. Let's go
How,
back to we got to go back to school for all this. How this all started, but
yeah, I mean, for people who are starting out in journalism and all that, what kind of advice do you have to make good pieces or different things in different nowadays versus back in it's different worlds, I would believe, to
well,
put
I think
product out.
for the people that want to go into journalism, the number of jobs in print journalism is shrinking rapidly. Newspapers are going out of business. People aren't reading newspapers as much, was a separate sad situation. People that don't watch the news, don't read a newspaper. I get my news off the internet. I get it off of, the social media. Well, oftentimes that isn't factual either. But anyway, Um, the gig that you do now is broadcast journalism. And of course, jobs there are few and far between. Those people are judged by their looks, by their clothing, by when they speak to the camera, do they sound believable? And they actually hire companies to go out and analyze even the people that are already working. I think she needs to change her dresses to a shade of green. I think that hairstyle of hers needs to be modernized a little bit. And they'll tell these people all this stuff. And basically, you kind of follow what you're told to do as far as your looks. Those glasses need to go, whatever. And so, broadcast journalism is probably where the jobs are, but they're not easy to get. They're very difficult to get. So it's a tough
So
gig.
so how do you stay on your unique self then?
Well, because nobody is writing for this little newspaper. The company I write for is called the San Diego Community News Group, and they actually publish 8 different newspapers around the San Diego area. There's that many parts of San Diego that are unique that a separate newspaper works. And
Mhm.
they actually have one paid reporter. That's all they have on their staff, one paid reporter, and they assign him 5 or 6 stories a week. And then it's other than that, it's contributors like myself. And I think I'm about the only person that's a regular contributor to the paper. Other people maybe once every couple months, whatever, few weeks. Our paper, by the way, went to a bi-weekly schedule. It's only comes out every other Friday, which is difficult. So when I go to
So
cover
yeah,
a football game, I'll interview the coach after a game, one a week that I have to go home and write a story for the next Friday. The next game is just kind of an in-between game, so it's a maybe score and a few little details or something. You have to make every game story about 2 separate games because of
uh,
our publication schedule. But it is what it is, and I do get
yeah,
paid.
that's good. That's a good thing because all that work, it's a lot of work just to even think about the situation for one, and then you have to go out and then you have to go out and put together. Do you have like a certain interview questions? Like do you have a certain way that you do things before you or your preparation process?
Um, the sports is pretty well set. When I go to do something else, then I'll think of questions. Like, for example, when I interviewed the boy coming up for baseball into the varsity, I asked him, well, tell me how long you've been playing baseball. When did you first play? And do you remember your first team? Have you always been a pitcher? Or did you have some other position? Things like that. What are your hopes for your career as a varsity player? Do you have plans to play after high school or hopes to play after high school? Maybe who are some of your favorite baseball players now? Just a lot of little questions might pop into mind, or his might prompt other questions. So
Right.
sometimes I'll go with a written set, but not too often.
Okay. Do you use a not a microphone,
Tape
um,
recorder.
tape recorder?
I
Mhm.
do. It's a little tiny thing. It's about the size of it's about 3 inches long and an inch wide, a little tiny thing. But I carry it with me in my pocket, and during the football games, when I'm photographing the games, I'll pull it out, turn it on, and speak notes into it for when I write the story later, or when I interview the coach, or I interview a player. I record that and then have to listen to it, transcribe it into the story later. But yes, I do. I've got a good friend who has written for decades for another paper, and he writes all his notes by hand on scraps of paper. And I said, "Why don't you get a tape recorder? They're, a few dollars." And then I have to transcribe the notes and everything like that. And, well, whatever. He's just got his little, and it's not even a notebook. It's little scraps of paper he finds and writes all the notes on there. And I, well, okay, whatever. Your style, my style, just 2 different ways to accomplish the task. And he's an award-winning writer also. So
Yeah, I mean, I go with tape recorder because my memory is just shot. Like, so I'm like, look, we're either way, I'm going into class, wherever, I have to record it and then listen to it about 3 times. I want to make sure that like the exact words are on whatever and I don't miss anything. But yeah, I'm going with the recorder side. The writing, yeah, I get it, but that's a long process. I have to ask a question about 1,000 times just to get the sentence in. Like
Well, I know
that's
I play the tape back 3 or 4 times. Sometimes you get the exact words of the coach in there. What I don't want to have happen is a coach to go to somebody or call my paper and say, "I didn't say that." And
oh
I
yeah.
want to be able to say, "Well, here, listen to my recorder," and show them that yes, he did say that, so that it kind of takes the blame off my shoulders or any kind of issue off my shoulders. But yeah, tape recorders don't lie. Like, they're pretty worthwhile.
Yeah. So what do you do if you're interviewing a person and that you when you ask them, hey, will tell them I have a tape recorder, and let them know. What do you do when they say no, you cannot record me? So you just go to paper and pen then, or
What I'll do if I have a question that gets a little bit personal or maybe one that isn't maybe to share for the newspaper, I'll say, okay, that's great. I'll turn the recorder off and I'll say, now, let me ask you this. And I'll say off the record or, this won't be in the newspaper. Tell me about this and that type of thing. And when I interview people, I hold my little tape recorder up by their, a foot away from their face, whatever. So I make sure I get a good signal, a good, strong voice and don't have to, worry about the reproduction later. But yeah, nobody's been the people I've talked to are all basically people that probably want their story in the paper, so that helps.
okay? Have you ever thought
Oh, we froze up.
been retired in the industry and seeing the difference in what's going on and putting that out there? What's
Okay, the screen froze while you were asking that. Did you ask about retiring from the newspaper work?
Oh, no. I was asking about, maybe probably a story that could happen. Don't know. That's on you. But about going and asking about the teachers nowadays, since you're a retired
Oh,
uh teacher, going in and kind of finding that story on like the difference in what's going on in the industry and whatnots and doing a piece on the teachers.
no, that could be really good. And things have changed a great deal since my time in the classroom. And I wish the parents would learn more about what does go on. Um, as far as elementary goes, my knowledge of that is teaching has changed to the point where now there's very little creativity left in the job. It's almost like you're given a script to read and you follow the script. Excuse me, at one time in our district, they had a thing on it, if they say fourth grade class, they wanted to be able to walk into any fourth grade class at one time in one moment and find every single fourth grade class studying the same page of the same book, the same topic.
What?
I thought that was crazy. No, that's not my type of teaching. So, um, things have changed. I'm not sure how good or how well that would work, but I wish at open houses the teachers would demonstrate some of their technology. I think that'd be great. Have you heard of a Promethean board? Oh, we froze up again. We already froze.
Was the last thing I
Yeah.
heard was at open houses, you wish that the teachers would demonstrate, and then after that, it froze.
Well, they have these boards now that are about 4 by 8 feet. They're great big large white boards in front of the classroom. They can write on their white surface. They can write on the surface with a felt marker, which erases, so it becomes the
Hmm.
whiteboard. They can project images up on it from like a computer generated item or whatever. Or
Hmm.
I think that it does things like it has other technological capabilities that I don't even know because I don't, work in those levels now. But these boards are like the 21st century new thing. I would have died to have that kind of technology when I was a teacher myself. um, to be able to use the internet, for example, to be able to research and do things and call up information that you happen to be talking about would be to me just over the top awesome. Um, if we talk more about my days in the classroom, I can kind of share more about that, what we did versus the internet. But I wish parents knew more about what the possibilities were, put it that way.
Yeah, I grew up on that old school chalkboard and that projector, and then the teachers would have those clear trying, doing the, what are those called?
Well,
Can't
there were
remember.
transparencies.
Yeah,
They
that,
were
and then
clear plastic.
it was the clear plastic, but they were like for the math class, they had the shapes that were clear, and
Oh,
it was
yes,
different
yes.
colors, and they put them on those projectors and stick it on the board and everything. And then yeah, we had the old school, and then the old school TV coming in with
Right.
the VCR.
We had all that too. And
Yeah.
yeah, that was a big deal back then, to have a television in your classroom or whatever. And times have changed so fast that it's just a whole different world now. I'm sure with cell phones and things like that, teaching is a much harder job, and how you deal with kids with cell phones every day, even in elementary school. I see
Yeah.
kids that are about 8 years old with iPhones, and you know, it's a different world out there. We can go back to my teaching days if you want. This might be you might have to do a separate show on journalism and one on teaching. I don't know.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's all here. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. You can come back and you can separate it. But yeah, teaching. What else you got?
What else I got? Oh, if you want to start on teaching, we'll be here for a long time. No, the teaching thing was a great, great job. It worked out really well for me. I actually decided to go into teaching when I was umpiring youth baseball. And I would be out on the bases umpiring, and I'd listen to the comments these little kids would make to each other. They were playing baseball, and they were so funny and so kind of witty and kind of just open and no regard for anything in whatever, that I just thought, it might be kind of fun to work with kids versus the sportscaster thing. So I changed my major and got my credential, and that's actually how I got into teaching. Um, Lots of teaching stories if you want to start going through some of those or asking some questions and things like that. My memories come back quite quickly, and I can bring you happy ones, I can bring you sad ones.
Oh yeah, bring the stories on. We want the stories.
Well, some of the things that would happen were funny, and I think your listeners will enjoy this. I did a thing that your friend Stephen was talking about, a news program. The reason I started doing that, my first year teaching, I was in Southeast San Diego in a different school district. In a school that was one third white, one third black, and one third Hispanic. And for example, the kids all loved the San Diego Chargers back then, but they had never seen the stadium. I realized their world only went a couple blocks to the corner store where they'd go to buy milk, for their parents.
Right.
So I started doing field trips and doing a lot of things like that, but I also started this news program. And what we did was we tried to make it realistic. So we divided the class into four teams. Each team would have like say 7 or 8 people on it. And one time, sometimes every week, sometimes every 2 weeks, they would have to produce a news broadcast that had world news, national
Mhm.
news, local news, sports, a feature story, and did I say weather? Anyway,
No, you did
then
now.
yeah, then we enlarged it to do four what we called special features. And the definition of a special feature was anything you want to tell us about that you think will hold the class's attention. So we had all kinds of special features done over the years. Um, One time, though, this kid gets up and he's going to do his special feature, and he says, "Today I'm going to do my special feature about a creature from the sea, the octopus. And he's very serious. He says, the octopus is a creature that has 8 testicles and blah, 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 suckers on each testicle. Well, the kids,
Oh,
the kids are trying to suppress a laugh and they're trying to be polite. And this kid's looking up, they're like, well, what's wrong? What's going on with this? So finally, he went through the whole report, and we had to tell him later, hey, I got news for you. Those were, no, not testicles. Anyway, things like that would happen. But some neat things happened too. We had kids come in and share hobbies and things like that. The best one ever was a girl in the class. Her first name was Aubrey, and she lived out on a ranch far enough away from the inner city where you could have horses. So
mhm.
all the kids knew she had horses. They'd teased her about it for years. They'd make sounds. She walked by, like a horse or whatever, or they'd make all these horse noises. And so she was kind of down about it. She didn't take it as something funny. She was like, took it as kind of a form of bullying. So one time I can't remember, I think it was my idea, but I said, hey, Aubrey, did you ever think about bringing one of your horses over to the school and put on a demonstration as a special feature? Oh, let me talk to my mom. She came back and says, yeah, my mom, we have a trailer. My mom says we can do it. So whenever it was, the next time her group was up to do the news broadcast, I put a note on the blackboard to all the classes saying we're going to have a horseback riding demonstration at 10 o'clock on the playground. And a whole bunch of classes came out. Her mom came out. They set up a couple, what do you call them, the things to jump over. And Aubrey
Mhm.
put on her riding outfit, the whole outfit with a little special cap and the whip and stuff. And they got her horse off the trailer all saddled up, and she rode the horse around in an oval around the playground and jumped him over the jumps, things like that. And the kids were like, wow. The whole school was like, thinking, this is great, this is awesome. And after they got done, the kids were up there petting the horse and all this. Well, after that, she never got teased once about being, a horse person or whatever. It turned out to be kind of a game changer for her as her experience as a student was, because she was now kind of looked up to instead of teased about, something that she had had to suffer for several years. That was a real great one. We had kids fly model airplanes on the playground. We had kids do all kinds of different things that other classes never did as part of this special feature thing. So, along with the news, when you did the news, you got evaluated by another team and they would score you,
Oh,
and we would keep the scores like ratings are on television.
okay.
Each team had their own 4-letter thing that started with a K, because I think in Alaska all the stations start with a K also, don't they? Like KLRN or something, or whatever.
I never noticed that.
Well, anyway, yeah.
Might.
West of the Mississippi, all the stations start with a K. So for San Diego, we told them, okay, you've got to have a 4-letter call letters, first, letters, call letter for your station. You've got to have a station motto. You've got to have certain things, and that became their news. They were a team battling the other stations or the other teams for rating points. And
That's pretty.
it was very, very cool. We had all kinds of things happen. A lot of the kids would stay up for like hours and hours at home preparing. Each one had a news director, and the director would give the assignments and all that. And some of them would stay up for hours and hours. If they had weak kids on their team, they would write the story for them and say, here's your script, you know, practice it, read it. And they would go to the library every day at about a half an hour before recess started. So they had a half an hour to put their show together. And the rest of the class stayed in class doing other things. So they got to actually leave and go off on their own. Oh, we had a projector, not the one that you talked about, but one called an overhead projector. And you'd put an object into it and it would project the object up on the screen. So they would take the pictures from the newspaper. And while they're
Mhm.
talking about the president doing something, they'd be projecting a picture of the president up on the screen in the classroom. So that was kind of like
Oh,
the
that's.
TV screen at home. And I mean, it got more and more detailed over the years as time went on. And a lot of kids, they'll remember certain things about the class, and news is one of the ones that they really do remember, hopefully well. We had oh, they do sometimes for the special feature, they do cooking demonstrations, and they bring in all the ingredients and make something right in front of the class, make a snack thing or a dessert item or something like that right in front of the class. Or they make a salad and give out samples to all the kids in the class of a salad that they had made, you know, fresh right on the spot. It had no limits to it. It was all interesting things that they came up with. And so that was probably one of the really creative things that I did over my career that had a lot of a lot of learning in it. That's the thing that maybe some people didn't realize. They were learning to speak in front of a group. They were learning
Hmm.
to prepare notes on something that wasn't just copied off the newspaper. They were learning to
Right.
research and do things like let's say one of them wanted to do a oh, like let's say the anniversary of Charles Lindbergh's flight to Paris was coming up. They wanted to do a biography story on Charles Lindbergh. Well, they had to get a source and find out about Charles Lindbergh. So in doing that, they were learning about him. They were learning how to research all kinds of different skills that came up from this program. Our school was a language arts magnet school, which meant that we were supposed to be providing language experiences that were different than other classrooms were doing. So the lady that was in charge of that once in a while would have visitors on campus, and she would bring them by to watch one of our news broadcasts as an example of something creatively different that we offered at the school. So it had a lot of good positives, a lot of good things that happened from it.
Wow. Did the news ever cover that? You know, if they found out that they were
You
having
know
a
what they would
mock.
do? The stations once in a while, somebody would call them about some school that did a 1 day thing. Like one station in town was KGTV, and they did a story on a class where the kids dressed up like the actual news anchors on their station. So one of them had
Oh,
a mustache, that little kid with a mustache on, and it was all done to imitate their people on the TVs. That kind of stuff got publicized. Ours really didn't, but that was okay because the learning happened. There was the learning that was going on, and for the kids, even the audience, it was learning. Oh, I've been a long time. I forgot. While the news was going on, I would write questions about the stories that were being presented. On Friday, when there was no news program being done, we
mhm.
did a quiz. And after we did the quiz, the teams would add up their scores, and the highest teams on the quiz scores got bonus points on their ratings. So it
Oh,
made it
nice.
so, yeah, so it made it so if you listened well, you could help your team also.
Yep.
So sometimes, I mean, sometimes the kids would take notes and give it to the other kids on their team, but weren't as good at taking notes. And here, read, use these notes. And I let them use, oh, if they took notes during the show, I told them they could use those notes on the quiz.
Hmm.
So then we had kids note taking, we had kids listening, we had kids going back to those notes for the quiz. And this news program had a whole bunch of elements to it. And that was probably my single greatest situation, creative thing. The one thing that was neat was our principal would call me in every year, and he liked a lot of what I did, and there's some things I did that maybe he wasn't like 100% on board with. And he would tell me, Scott, he'd say, I have to be honest with you, he says, I don't agree all the time with what you do, he said, but every year, he says, year in and year out, he said, your kids gain the highest scores in the school on the standardized testing every year. They showed the highest scores and the greatest gains since the previous year.
Wow.
So what I tried to do is I tried to make it that everything I did that was creative wasn't just a kill time thing, it had a big learning element to it.
Yeah. And
And that's what made it special.
they didn't know that they were learning. They were just having fun
There you go.
while receiving the knowledge and teamwork, learning about the teamwork and how is the bullying? Did that slow down with utilizing that too, or like?
Well, I made a point with the kids at the start of the year. First off, at the start of the year, some of the kids were afraid to be in my class if they were assigned there. Some of them wanted to be. I had a number of them that the parents had requested me, and then some of them were just like, "Oh, I heard he's really, really strict," you know. But anyway, I would tell the kids, "Hey, one thing about you know our class is nobody gets criticized or made fun of for anything. Not
Mm,
I don't care what people are wearing. I don't care what blah blah blah. We don't do that. That's just not something we do here. We're part of a kind of a large family and we support each other. We don't, put each other down. And if I find out you're doing that, I'm going to make your life unpleasant,
right.
make it so that you're not going to be a happy camper if you start doing that to other kids. And we had a couple examples over the year I can tell you about that were pretty gnarly. But no, the learning thing was like nonstop. And I had a friend who was a librarian, and he had a program called Calendar Clue. And what this was, it had a calendar with nothing on the dates. And every Monday, they would give you a category. It might be geography. And
Hmm.
on Monday, there'd be a clue that says, I'm the tallest mountain on my continent. And every
Oh,
day, the clues got more and more detailed to where finally, by the end of the week on Friday, it didn't give it away, but it made it a lot more obvious what it was. So we had a policy on our class. Anytime you're done with your work, you want to work on calendar clue, go for it. And so these kids would get done and they go over there and get out the encyclopedias. The librarians even gave us extra sets of encyclopedias because nobody uses these. You guys want them? Sure, we'll take them. And then, okay, tallest mountain on the continent. And they'd be looking through the side encyclopedias trying to find out what was the tallest mountain on each continent, for example. So when they thought they had the answer, they'd fill out a little form and put it in a box that was sealed. On Friday, we'd announce what the answer was, and we'd go through all the entries, and anybody who got it right got some type of an award, like maybe it'd be a fudge bar, a fudge stickle or something, but the winner usually got a great big giant a Snickers bar or something like that. And
right.
yeah, and so there was always research to be done if you got done with your work, type of thing. They weren't just like, oh, like a lot of classes, hey, teacher, I'm done. What do I do now? And they think, oh, well, I don't know. They wouldn't know what to say to the kids that got finished early. Our kids would jump up and head for the encyclopedias, and they're researching, and all that time they're reading, they're thinking, they're trying to, maybe narrow down what the topic is, the subject matter they should be looking for. It was really,
Hmm.
really, a good program there. So we did that every week for years and years and years. Calendar Clue. And another thing that I did that was a big help for that kind of thing was we had what we called special projects. And the definition of that was anything you're interested in that you're working on at home or want to do, you can bring it into school and work on it also when you have free time. So we had kids that were building model airplanes, for example, and they'd bring in the model and have it set aside. They got done with their work, they'd get it out and start working on their project. And other kids would be watching and checking it out, and they could explain what they're doing to the kids. And so that was kind of a neat thing also. The idea of like, what do I do when I'm done, never was an issue like it was for a lot of teachers. We always had lots and lots to do. So anyway, some little stories there that
Yeah, I guess it keeps their minds going and
absolutely
keeping their minds off of, you know, having that empty space of what do I do? Oh, let
right,
me just go hurt somebody or act
right.
up in this area or
Mm.
whatever. Yeah, gosh, I remember those kinds of days. Like we had those ice cream, not Sundays, but the Fridays. We'd have to work up for the Sunday ice cream Sunday bar to come through, So we had to be good and do our work and all that stuff. And
All right. Yeah, we had all kinds of little things we did, little field trips and things like that. That first school I was at, where the kids didn't know their way around the town too much, gave me the
Mhm.
idea to start taking kids around to see the world. So a lot of things we did were sports related. Once again, it's my kind of my bag. But I would get a group of maybe, like say 5 or 6 kids, 3 boys, 3 girls, make sure it was always balanced. And maybe we'd go to a San Diego State football game at the same stadium where the Chargers played. And they'd be in this huge stadium. A lot of them had never seen anything like this. And this huge stadium, the lights, and all the things going on. And it was an eye opener for a lot of them. It was opening them to the cultural world a little bit. Every winter, I tried to take my whole class ice skating because that was something you wouldn't find too often in San Diego. And
Right.
so we kind of build that as physical education for the cold climates, right? Now
Yeah,
you
there you go.
now you find out what they do in areas where it's not nice and sunny in the middle of December or January. So when we did that, we'd have other classes say, "Gee, we'd like to go." Sure, come on, you can go. Other classes, we'd like to go. It got to where at one point we had every second through sixth grade class in the whole school went. I think we had like 15 buses lined up outside the school. It was nuts. There were so many kids that it was kind of overkill. We had parents
Mhm.
go along to help tie skates and do things like that, and I skated, so that made it fun for me. Uh, Most of the other teachers couldn't skate, or if they tried, they were hanging on the rail the whole time. But I skated. That made it fun. It was just some kids to get out and skate right away. Oh, we had a video we showed them on how to skate properly also before they went, and
Mhm.
how to tie their skates properly. So at least they had an idea of what they were supposed to do. And then once they got there, if they couldn't get them tight enough, maybe a parent would help them. Some kids would go out, and even though rental skates are usually not very sharp,
Yeah.
they'd go out and they'd skate right away. And others of them were on the rail the whole day and all that. But it was fun. I mean, you always kids out there having fun, and just something that most of them had never done before. And it was like those giving kids the experiences. That was what a lot of my thing was about, giving them the experience of something that maybe they never would have had into adulthood. Um, Later on, another friend of mine came up with this idea, but I grabbed onto it and did it myself. Um, on a lot of Friday nights, if I wasn't busy doing something else, we would get like 2 girls, 2 boys. We'd go to a restaurant in San Diego called the Corvette Diner. And this was an oldies restaurant that played all 1950s and 60s music.
Mhm.
All the waitresses were done in old time costumes with the bouffant hairdos and all that. And it had a real Corvette Stingray parked in the lobby. And back then, I think they did a kid's meal for like $3. It was like a hot dog, fries, and a beverage or something. So we'd take the kids in there. Every hour or so, all the waitresses would put down their trays and they'd dance to some type of an oldies record. And so
Mhm.
we'd tell the kids, "Hey, you want to dance? Go ahead." And some of the kids wouldn't, but some of the kids would get up alongside the waitresses, the servers, and be dancing along with them, and that things like that, first time in their life ever, right? So from
Mhm.
there, we'd go down to an area that's still in San Diego called Seaport Village, and it's got a carousel. We'd all ride on the carousel first, and then we'd walk through some shops that they had there, and the kids maybe would buy something for themselves. A lot of times they'd buy something for brother and sister, and then we walk over to a hotel next door that had a 40-story observation lounge. And we go up on the elevator to the 40th story. They'd never been on a building that big. And we
Mhm.
look out over downtown San Diego and the bay from 40 floors above the ground. And a lot of them was, whoa, and we say, hey, see, there's the train station over there. There's the airport over there. Oh yeah, oh yeah. So I mean, and then we'd head home from there. And when we were driving down the freeway, I'd say, "Hey, have you guys been over the Coronado Bridge, which is a bridge that goes over our bay and to a separate city called Coronado? Big, big bridge, huge bridge." And they'd say, "No." "Oh, well, you're gonna get a chance now." We get on the bridge and we go way. You're up high enough to where Navy ships could pass underneath it. It was made for that reason. And we were way, way up
Wow.
in the air, looking down on the bay and the ships and things. And we go over the bridge, then turn around and come back, and we'd take them home. We'd have them home by like 9 o'clock, so it wasn't like past their bedtime or whatever. And a lot of times, the parents come out and wave and say hello, thank you, things. Someone wouldn't say anything, but the kids were all excited and running the house with all the stuff they'd bought or whatever they had done, and telling their parents all about it and stuff. So just a lot of things like that, so that I think they saw me anyway outside of school, not just a teacher. And at 3 o'clock, you become somebody else. Um, there was an old Leave It to Beaver episode from way, way back in the show Leave It to Beaver.
Yeah.
And what was his teacher name? I can't remember her name, Miss Landers. And Beaver was really disappointed when he found out that Mrs. Landers was going to get married. He thought she lived at the school and then she just went into one of the closets at night or something like that and just slept there. And he was crushed to know that his teacher had a life, outside of school. So I kind of wanted them to see that about me too, the fact that, hey, outside of school, we do things too. We go places, we go to restaurants, we go to movies, things like that.
Yeah. You become uncle after that. Like,
Uncle, yeah. Yeah, just as long as it ends at, a certain time. Yeah, no. So
you can give them back. Yeah.
I'll tell you, there were a number of kids I had over the years that I would have loved to have as a son or a daughter. They were
Mm,
really, really great kids. I saw that they were headed, looked to me like in the right direction, really, really, great futures, that type of thing. And of course, there were some you think, whew, June, whatever, adios. Good luck to you.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you dealt with the transition with like the civil rights and all that stuff during the schools? Like, did you ever deal with that stuff, or that came after you started teaching afterwards?
Well, we didn't have any kind of civil rights lessons per se, but one thing that I did that was one of my favorite things also. Um, One year I started, they had well, I'm kind of like confused here just about it. They had a policy in the school district where after the kids came in from lunch and they'd been playing, all these kids were sweaty and, they had really played hard at lunch to try and get them to settle back down to be able to learn in the afternoon. They wanted the teachers to read to the kids, read from a book to the kids. So I got the idea. I'm not going to read some little kid book. I got the idea to start reading Tom Sawyer to the kids. So I started reading Tom Sawyer, and I'd stop as I was reading, and I'd ask questions to see if they understood things and make sure that they were kind of with the story as it went along. And after doing that for a year or two, well, let's try Tackleberry Finn. So on the day after the Christmas break, we got back from our winter break, Christmas break, I would start reading Huckleberry Finn to the kids. And of course, that got into the racial things like you're talking about, the ethnic things, because of the slave issue back
Mhm.
then and the fact that Mark Twain dealt with that. Jim,
Yeah.
the runaway slave, was a main character in the book. So I was kind of lucky. My principal had gone to see a play that I also saw called Big River, and it was the story of Huckleberry Finn put to the Broadway stage. And all the music was written by Roger Miller. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He had those
No.
stories like Dang Me, and he had one song called You Can't Roller Skate in a Buffalo Herd. These were these country, twangy, off the wall kind of songs. So he wrote the entire score for Big River. It had some gospel, it
Mhm.
had some country twangy songs, and it had some very serious songs. One especially about the relation between Huck as a young white boy and Jim as a runaway slave. A really, really touching song there. So anyway, I had gone to see the play. My principal had also gone to see it. He liked it so much he bought the soundtrack on the way home, he and his wife. And I had the soundtrack also. So what I did was I got the big Broadway program they sell. I put an
Mhm.
attachment on my camera, and the little tiny pictures in the program, I photographed them with my camera, and they're on slides. So every time we got to a part in the book where there was a song about that part of the story, we'd play the song. They all had I gave them all lyric sheets. They'd play the
Oh,
song, and we'd project an image of the actors in that part of the play. So it was kind of
well,
like a
that's
multi uh,
uh,
visual,
yeah.
type thing, multi sensory thing. So knowing that it had the slave issues in the book, my principal just said, "Why don't you go ahead and send a note home? Tell them you'll be reading the book Huckleberry Finn in class, and that it has some language and some words in it that are not acceptable by today's standards, whatever. And if you'd like your child to be excused from the reading of the book, please sign and return this." I never
Mhm.
got a slip back through all the years, and I had black kids in my class. So when we got to the part of the book where they use, the word nigger, I read it just as if, the rest of the book the way it was. I, I'd tell the kids, hey, uh, back in the 1850s when this was taking place, that kind of language was used, but it's not used today.
Right.
And please don't use it here at school. Please don't use it on the playground. Please don't use it anywhere in your life because it's not appropriate anymore. It's not the way we speak now. And I never got any feedback from that. I never got any issues back from that. And I would read the book like in a dialect, kind of like this accent or whatever of Huckleberry Finn or Tom Sawyer back then. And excuse me. So that made it kind of fun too. And so all the kids had a copy of the book too. So they were reading along
Uh-huh.
the book. They heard my accent of the way I read the words. They also, if there were words they didn't know, they heard me read the word. Oh, okay, that's what that word is. And then we'd, play the songs, see the images of these people. And every Friday for 30 minutes after recess, we had a thing called USSR, which sounds like Russia, right? But it
Mhm.
stood for Uninterrupted, Sustained, Silent Reading. So everybody in the school, including the teachers, was supposed to sit down and read for 30 minutes. Everybody in the school. So what I would do during that time is I would put on the Big River soundtrack up until where we were in the book. I wouldn't let it go past where we were in the book, so they wouldn't, and then I'd stop it. But the kids, I told them if you want to read your Huckleberry Finn book, you can read that. That counts. If you want to read your lyrics for the songs, that counts. Most of the kids, by the time we got through the book, they had memorized all the lyrics to all of the songs in the entire Broadway show. They knew the whole thing. And, that was a special, special event. So a couple years after we started doing this, Big River came to the San Diego Broadway shows. So I put out a notice. I tried to call a couple of the kids from like junior high that had seen it before, and all the current kids. We ended up on like a Saturday matinee, taking something like 60 people to see Big River. We and the kids came up with the money. The parents had the tickets were probably $35 back then or $40. Kids came up
Mhm.
with money, and we got this big group of kids. And when the play happened, they knew all the parts that were going on. They knew all what the actors all looked like, and they knew all the songs. So I had to tell them, "Hey guys, don't sing along when the show is going because it might bother some people around you." But they knew every song, every point. Some adults, I watched some of the adults in the theater, and they're just like not interested in the show. Don't think it's all that great. The kids we had the whole entire time. I mean, I mean, it was a great experience for them. I wish all the kids could have gone to see that.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Were they able to get to meet the cast at
no,
all?
the only way we could have done that was to go around the corner on the down the sidewalk to where the door is for the stage.
Uh,
And we didn't try to do that. I thought that probably would have been a little awkward. The first time I saw Big River was in New York City. I saw the original cast, and I was there on a trip with my mom and dad. First off, this is another topic, but I did about a dozen trips to Washington, D.C. and New York City with elementary school kids.
mm,
11, 12 years old, we took them across the country. Parents allowed us to take them for like 10 days, and we did these trips over and over. So, anyway, um, my mom and dad, I eventually took them back there because they never had traveled much. And we went to see Big River and they fell asleep. But that's where I first learned about it. So the guy playing Huck's father, Pap,
mhm.
was John Goodman,
No
who,
way.
who went on to become the star on Roseanne and
Yeah.
other shows. But back at that time, that was one of his first big roles, was as Pap on the Broadway show Big River.
Wow.
So a couple days later, we were walking down the street, and I didn't know it, but he had to enter the stage from the sidewalk outside. So here was John Goodman on the sidewalk, all decked out in his Pap costume, waiting to go in the stage door to make his appearance. That was really hilarious to see that. And when we went back there, we always took the kids to a Broadway show. When I
Mm.
took kids on an East Coast trip, we always went to see a Broadway show. One time we saw Pirates of Penzance, and that time we did go to the stage door, and the person that was playing in Pirates of Penzance that came out was Pam Dauber. You might not remember her, but she was Mindy on Mork and Mindy, the
Oh,
old
I like
TV
Mork and
show.
Mindy. Yeah. Okay. So I
So
didn't
the
know.
kids recognized her right away, and she was really nice to the kids. Oh, where are you from? Chula Vista. Where's that? We're in California. Oh my gosh, you came all the way from California to see the show. Wow. And she was signing autographs, talked kids for probably 20 minutes or more. Really, really friendly, really nice person. Once again, more experiences for kids. We would go to a Yankee baseball game if they were in town.
Hmm.
We would go out to the Statue of Liberty, and that was when you could climb up inside the statue back in the day. Um, we'd go to the World Trade Center. I stood on the top of that World Trade Center a dozen times, before the 9/11 took place. Uh,
Yeah.
we would go to Rockefeller Center, all the heights of New York, but also Washington, D.C. Took all the kids to the White House, all the kids to the U.S. Capitol, all the main monuments, all that type of thing too. And putting everything together was quite a career, quite a an adventure over all those years. Um, at the end of the year, we took the kids, all the sixth graders, we took them to a beach in San Diego. The parents brought over stuff and barbecued, and the kids all brought boogie boards, things like that. Well, I was a boogie boarder myself, so the other teachers would sit up on the sand and talk to each other, and I'd be out in the water with the kids boogie boarding, and had my fins on and out there catching waves with them. It was a blast. It made for it was a lot of fun for them to see me out doing all these things, maybe that they didn't realize, you know, teachers do besides come to school every day.
Yeah. And I don't see many teachers doing that nowadays. Nowadays, it's kind of scary to do that
Well,
with
yes, I wonder about that. Back in the day, parents could bring snacks to class. If a kid had
Mhm.
his birthday, sometimes they'd bring in cupcakes for all the kids,
Yeah.
or a cake or whatever. Sometimes for a special day, maybe they'd bring in brownies, they'd bring in things for a special event day. Now I understand, I've been told no homemade goods are allowed to be brought into the school anymore because of
Uh,
worries about preparation.
yeah.
We used to have a field trip. We would ask which parents would like to drive. and they had a form they had to fill out with the name of their insurance company, the limits of their
Hmm.
liability, blah, blah, blah. And then they would assign 4 or 5 kids to go with them, and they'd drive on the field trip with us. I understand that's not allowed anymore. It has to be on a bus, on a district bus. Um, and I don't know what else other changes are made, but you know, times are
Yeah,
different.
yeah, it's pretty sad. I mean, I think I was probably one of the last kids that, that generation that was able to experience field trips and going out to the camps, and then after that it just kind of went down. I really didn't even see my kids do that kind of stuff, really. I mean, Milton Hershey School did it, some stuff, but like a regular school,
And
no.
sometimes we walked. Sometimes there was something we could walk to.
Yeah.
One day I read in the paper, or I don't know where I heard this, that the Chula Vista Fire Department was going to burn down a house on purpose for training. It was a house that was going to be knocked down to maybe to build apartments or something. And
Hmm.
so the fire department thought, we'll light it on fire and we'll send the crews in rotation to let them learn how to run into a burning building, the oxygen mask and all that stuff and practice. So we sent out permission slips. Next day at a certain time, we all got walked out of the school, walked on down to the street, and the fire department comes and, what are you guys doing here? They said, well, we came to watch you guys burn down the house. Oh, okay. Well, we're going to start in about 5 minutes. And they would light this thing on fire with big flames shoot up in the air, and the guys are running with the hoses and stuff. And the kids, we watched the whole thing. Then they'd put it out, then they'd relight it. And we watched for a little while. I think we brought our lunches with us and ate lunch on the spot too. Um,
Yes.
Even though they were sixth graders, I tried to get them to still remember your little kids still kind of. So when Easter came around, we would dye Easter eggs in the class. Then we would walk to a park nearby that had a restaurant, hamburger restaurant there,
Hmm.
and we would eat. We would go in, and the kids would buy all their lunches and sit down and eat together in the restaurant. Then we'd go out in the park. I can't remember if we had adults with us or what, but anyway, we'd hide the Easter eggs in the park, and the kids would run around and find the Easter eggs in this public park. And as crazy as that sounds, they thought it was great. Well, that was so much fun for them. And it kind of, like I said, made them remember, hey, you got a long ways to go till adulthood. You're still a kid. Enjoy this stuff while you can, because it won't last forever. And you know,
Yeah.
enjoy it while you can.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish they would really do that this nowadays. They're just bored and things are getting taken out of school,
Mm.
to because of money or whatever issues. It's like, no, you're taking away their creativity and their, the ability to be creative. And um no, like it's so sad nowadays to see that.
Yeah, that another thing I did was I tried to involve the parents in their education a little bit. And I'm sure
Yes.
some of the parents liked this and some of them probably hated it. But I bought about 50 posters that all had a little quote on them of some sort. And every Wednesday, I'd put up a poster with a new quote on it. I had a little half sheet of paper, and they would copy the quote down on the paper. And
Hmm.
the paper asked the parents to please, if they had time, not required, if they had time to spend some time discussing what they thought the quote meant with their child, and perhaps give your child some examples of how that quote affected your life. Okay. Then on Thursday, kids come back into class. We'd move all the desks to the side of the classroom, and we'd all sit in a great big circle where we could all see each other. And the kids would read the quote and then say what they, thought it meant, and we discuss it from there. We kind of go on from there. Uh,
Hmm.
so, oh, I also told the kids, if your parents don't want you to share what they said to you or shared with you, please honor that. Don't tell anybody in the class in our discussion what your parents said, because that would be a violation, wouldn't be courteous. Some of them would read
Right.
what their parents had said and what they shared with them, and it made for a really interesting thing because it got the kids talking with their parents. A lot
Yeah.
of nowadays, of course, a lot of Dinner is this. I see them in restaurants. Nobody talks to each other. They're all on their phones. Back in the day, sometimes it was stress. Parents got home, had to make dinner, eat your dinner, take your bath, go to bed, type thing. And it got them maybe talking about something serious, something other than, well, how was school today? You know? Um, so we got some really interesting thoughts about that. One of the first ones I'd use at the start of the year is a quote that said, because the start of the year, no goal is too high if we climb with confidence and care. And it had a picture on the illustration was a guy climbing a mountain, with the ropes and all that climbing. That was his goal, obviously. So I tell the kids, what are some of your goals in life? Have you ever thought about that? What are some of the things you'd like to do with your life? Ask your parents what some of their goals were when they were 11 and 12 years old. What did they want to do back in their childhood? Did they accomplish that goal or did they not? If they did, great. What do they do now? What is their occupation or their job? And if they didn't, what were some of the things that got in their way? What are some of the things that blocked their path to their goal? See, those get pretty deep. If
Yeah.
parents will talk to them about that, that gets pretty deep. And some of the kids, their parents would they'd say, my parent wanted to be a, oh, say like a doctor or whatever, and they got to high school and realized that they couldn't pass all the courses, for science and the things they needed, or they had to drop out of college because of this or that. And so now my mom is works at so and so, my dad works at, they'd actually share this stuff with the kids. Others I might sure maybe not as said much. But that was one thing I did that I thought was really, really different.
Mm.
And by the way, I did the same thing during the sex education time.
Oh boy. You taught
Um,
sex education?
oh
That'd be
yeah.
fun.
Well, it was actually one of the most interesting times of the year. We had certain things we could not talk about. We were told you're not talk about, and that was things like any other types of sexuality other than heterosexuality, any kind of birth problems or birth defects. I can't remember what else. There were certain things, don't bring those up.
Mhm.
If the kids ask, you need to go home and ask your parents about that. That's how you're supposed to answer it. And they had a
Okay.
little, and we had a little box that if you had a question you were too embarrassed to ask or didn't want to ask in front of the class, you could write down your question, put it in the box. So every once in a while, or every day or two, we'd open the box. So the whole course lasted 2 weeks. And this was sixth grade, so it was about as advanced as it got. Well, at the start of the time, keep in mind it's like 1972, the films were so bad, they would talk about the illustrations would be like a cow would come down out of the sky and the sperm would little dotted line to the other cow on the ground, and then there'd be baby cows.
What in the world?
I mean, that's kind of the way they'd illustrate it because they didn't want to, get too, oh, show people or whatever. So we'd watch these films, and I would tell the kids, I try to make it light. I tell the kids, if any of you guys are taking a drive out in the country, you might want to, keep your eyes up in the sky. You might see a cow up there, trying to make the other cow pregnant. And they'd laugh, because I mean, the films were so bad. And I would actually tell them, try and spot things in the film that are not factual. Sometimes things they would show in their worry about showing the real situations were not real. And
Right.
sometimes they'd spot them. Then for it got a little better over the years. Then they came up with some films. One was called Boy to Man, and the partner film was called Girl to Woman. So on the
Hmm.
day that we showed Boy to Man, we showed it only to the boys. And if I was the only male teacher in sixth grade, all the boys for the class would be in my room. The girls would all go off, and usually the school nurse or somebody would show it. So the Boy to Man would show mostly about the boy's anatomy and all these different functions things, and a little bit about the female. The female one would concentrate on the female, and then a little bit on the male.
Hmm.
So the kids would come back and they go, Mr. Hopkins, how come we don't get to see the boys? We don't get to see the girls' film. The girls, we don't get to see the boys' film. So after a while, we said, okay, well, we'll put you together. That's fine. So I just, I just remember, like when we'd show the films, and I'd kind of be sitting in the back of the room, I'd be watching, and I'd see some kids, I'm watching the films, and some of the stuff was totally new to them. They were like freaked out a little bit. And then we turned on the lights after the film was over, and the looks on the kids' faces were priceless. I don't know if I can do it on the screen, but the boys, like some boys, be looking at girls. You know, it was so hilarious, and I'd be trying not to laugh, and everything like that. But it was so off the wall. So the question box, sometimes we get some really intense questions. And
Hmm.
something that I have to say, well, I'm sorry, I'm not allowed. I know an answer, but I'm not allowed to tell you that. You need to ask your parents about that. And other times, we get one that we can answer. And maybe by the time we'd pulled the question out, they'd had it as part of the lesson. So we get questions like, oh, I don't know. Let's see. Can the man have more than one sperm? Or something like that. And we go over the fact that, well, oh, I had a book that I bought at San Diego State on sex education. And
Hmm.
I was real honest and upfront with them, and didn't pull any punches. I tried to make it as educational as I could. And so if they'd say something like, well, does the man just release one sperm or something like that? I'd say, well, no. Actually, during a typical ejaculation, the male releases several billion sperm cells. And from what I read, I think it said that like 1 million sperm cells would fit on the head of a pin. I think I read that in my literature. Whatever it was, I said what it was. Why I didn't make it up. I said the factual thing. And wow, I mean, it kind of put everything in perspective. And
Yeah.
then we got like say the idea of they asked about twins. I said, well, what do you think the odds are of having twins during a pregnancy and a birth? Oh, one in where, one in there. So, well, stop and think. How many sets of twins are there in the school? You guys know most of the grades and stuff. How many sets of twins are there at school? There's like six. They name them all off. Okay, and how many kids are there? Okay, so it's probably about one in. Turns out it's like one in. I think it was 30. I'm not sure.
Hmm.
What do you think the odds are of triplets? Oh my gosh! And someone guessed like a little bit more. I believe that was one in 4,000. And then what do you think the odds are of quadruplets? And it was one in the hundreds of thousands, obviously. It was very, very, very rare. So I try to make it all factual, try to make it all something that even if they didn't remember those numbers, they'd realize, okay, twins are fairly common, but above that, no, they're very rare and all that. We talk about twins from a single fertilized egg and twins
Hmm.
from two fertilized eggs. The identical and non-identical twins. We had both in the school, so you can kind of point out who. Not that that was the. You don't want to embarrass them, but you could say, you know,
Right.
where their beginning was, and all kinds of things would happen. Well, one time, I got that book and I made a lot of transparencies out of it that you put on those projectors you were talking about.
Hmm.
One of them was of a circumcision procedure.
Hmm.
And so I had all the boys in there together. I must have had like that, God, that year, or well, after your first time, there must have been like 50 or 60 boys, tons of boys in this room. And the other teachers just stood in the back. They didn't want to like run the show or whatever. So I'll do it, no problem. But I said, how many of you in the room here have ever had a surgery? And a couple hands go, well, what would you have? Well, I had surgery on my wrist. I broke my wrist. Oh, okay. That's too bad. Oh, how about you? I had dental surgery. Oh, you're right. Dental surgery is a type of surgery too. Blah, blah, blah. I say, now, I don't want anybody to say anything. And I'm not going to ask the same question afterwards. But take a look at this. Bink! And I turn on this big transparency of a circumcision procedure.
Oh.
And a lot of the jaws would just,
Uh,
they
that.
didn't know. that
Right.
that had happened to them as a baby. Their parents apparently had never discussed with them either. And so then I had to make the point of saying some groups of people and some cultures believe in this and others don't. So whether you are circumcised or not is not a good or bad issue. It's just a matter of what your parents chose for you at the time of
Hmm.
your birth. And I get questions like, Mr. Hopkins, can you be circumcised like maybe when you're like 12? And and you
Yeah.
and I'd say, well, yes, you can, but the procedure is a lot more difficult. It's not
Yeah.
as easy of a procedure on a person of your age or current age. So I try to make so everybody learn stuff, and it wasn't a hold it back. A lot of the teachers were afraid to even say the words in class, of vagina or penis or whatever. They were afraid to even say the words. Oh, oh, and I had parents come to me and say, "Oh, Mr. Hopkins, I'm so glad you teach this to my son. I could never teach this to him." And and that kind of thing. And uh, anyway, it was lots of good adventures, lots of different things that happened, different types of classes, different types of kids. Some that were super super smart that were probably for example, today my optometrist is one
Hmm.
of my sixth grade students.
What?
Yeah, he
Wow.
and he has a great background story. I guess we're off sex ed for a minute. He came into the sixth grade classroom the first day of school, and he spoke Spanish and Hebrew. Turns out he was born in Israel and he's Jewish. So, as we back then we didn't have an instructional aide or somebody to work with him. So I
Hmm.
put him next to a couple of kids that spoke Spanish, said, "Hey guys, help Eli out as much as you can when we're doing work in the class and all that." His name was Eli. And so this kid was really, really smart. We used to let them play football at lunchtime. We had grass fields. Most schools don't let them do that. We said, as long as you guys don't get in fights, don't have arguments, don't get too rough, you guys can play football out here. If you overdo it, we'll have to call it off. So these kids, like I said, would come in from the football game just dripping perspiration, shirts were soaked, and they one day they came in and they're arguing. That was a touchdown. No, it wasn't. Yes, it was. That was a touchdown. No, it wasn't. One of the kids arguing in English was Eli. And I said, "Yes, he's mastered English." That was the sign for me that I knew he now understood English quite well. Well, by the end of the
Yeah.
year, he had passed a lot of the kids in his English reading ability.
Wow.
And another year or two later, I got an invitation in the mail to a bar mitzvah for Eli.
Hmm.
And it was an unusual sect of the Jewish faith or whatever that did this on a school day in a situation where the women sat on one side of the room and the men sat on the other. I had never seen that before, although I'd been to several bar mitzvahs. So I actually took a day off of work, got a sub, and went to Eli's bar mitzvah on a school day. And later, a couple years later, well, it was more than that, a couple years later, I got an invitation in the mail from the Pacific. It was called the Pacific University School of Optometry for his graduation. And he came back to town and bought an existing practice of an optometrist that had been in the office for 40 years. So this guy had hundreds and hundreds of patients. He bought the entire practice. So all the patients, all he had to do is say, "Oh, hello, I've taken over Dr. So-and-so's practice." And he's a great optometrist. He's done really, really well. In fact, now he hardly ever comes to the office. I think he's done so well that he's got three other optometrists in the office. And on he goes. But he's prescribed my glasses, done all my measurements, all my, health updates on my eyes over the years. And that's the great thing about having kids that past elementary school.
Yeah, that had to be amazing just to be sitting there and then having him literally read English while he's an adult about your eyes and stuff like that, and having to trust that and be like, you know what? I knew you when you were not
Yeah.
able to do that. That had to
No,
be
no,
a
I
very
mean, well, by the time he was, in college, he was more than fluent in English. He was beyond fluent. All the terminology of optometry and things like that they had to learn, and he beautified the office, put in all new equipment, new furniture, made it look really beautiful. And from what I understand, people love him. He's in an area of young, kind of not radical, but kind of on the edge people, hippie-ish type people, the area of San Diego he's in, and they love him. He's really good with people. Oh, another thing he does, across the street from his office, there's an elementary school. And it's a school I went to in kindergarten and first grade when I was really little. He goes over to the nurse and asks her, "Do you have any kids who you think might need glasses?" She'll identify a couple of kids. They call the parents to get permission, and then the
Mhm.
nurse herself walks them across the street to his office. He does a free exam and then has them pick out glasses. And I think he's got a 1 hour machine back there in his office. And
Oh,
an hour later, he brings the glasses or whatever back over to the school. Kids put on their brand new glasses and, you know, for free.
that's an amazing story.
Yeah. Now, I have written about him in the newspaper. I've done two stories on him in the newspaper. One about his practice, I guess, and the other about the free glasses for students that he does.
Yeah,
So, yeah, he's a great guy, great man. His brother became an attorney. Uh,
nice.
yeah, the two boys in the family that came here speaking no English. So the concept of, I'm sure you know too the same thing, the concept of immigrants coming here does not mean they're bad people. I mean, a lot of people that come into our country over the years have done wonderful things and all that. Anyway, that's a little touchy subject right now, so we'll stay off that. But anyway, that's a good one. Um, Mainly my thing was to give the kids an experience in life.
Hmm.
And a lot of that doesn't happen in a classroom. A lot of that happens out in the public, out in, the world. And so like I said, everything from taking groups on a Friday night to go out to a restaurant and go up in a 40-story building and all that, all the way to going to Washington, D.C. and New York City, where
Yep.
back in the day, they had traveler's checks. And we didn't keep any money for them at all. We told the kids, told the parents too, your kids are responsible to get up on time, get down to the lobby of the hotel on time. When we set the time, we're all going to walk to breakfast together. And from there on, boom, our day goes on. And they've got to be wide awake. No, they can't be goofing around all night in their hotel rooms. They're not going to be, there won't be an adult in every room. So they've got to, be adult-like or take responsibility, get to bed, get to sleep. A
Mm.
lot of interesting things over the years. A lot of interesting things. So, um, I've had the, excuse me, I had the good feedback too has come from that. I had one mom that came to me years ago, and she had this kid that was huge. He was in sixth grade. He was 5'10", and I used to see
Oh.
him when he was out on the as a fourth grader, and he used to run around like kind of like he was out of control. He'd bang, run into walls, fake run into walls and stuff, and do all that stuff. I remember thinking to myself, "Oh God, please don't put that kid in my class as a sixth grader." Well, I got him, and it turns out he was a super funny kid. He had a great sense of humor. We
Mm.
got along great. And he went on to become well, by the time he got a little older, he played football at San Diego State. He was 6 foot 7 inches tall, weighed about 290 pounds, and he was a defensive lineman for San Diego State football. But he became a teacher and then a head football coach, and now he's
Mm.
the athletic director at one of the high schools here in the area where I live. So, you know, his mom basically said his dad, I guess, just had abandoned them and didn't come around like you hear so often. And she said,
Yeah.
she told me, you saved him. He was headed down a bad path, and you saved him. She said, no telling what he would have, how he would have turned out, but you know, you did the job, and thank you for doing that. So, things like that are really nice to hear. Um, I've heard that from, a number of parents over the years. I also would, this is kind of funny too. I also had kids that when they were in fifth grade, they were big hellraisers or whatever, and one particular teacher, she'd start crying 'cause she couldn't control them, and the principal said, "Hey, do you think that we should put all those guys in your class next year, or just one of them or something?" I said, "No, put them all in. That's fine," and we'd get along fine. We get along just fine. Yeah, they had energy. That was kind of what it was. They had energy. But when they were doing things, they were, they were being challenged or whatever, everything was fine. And of course, a lot of these times it was kids in homes without fathers, to be honest, too. And all of a sudden, here's a man telling you what to do. That was different than mom. And
Hmm.
I could give them the old serious look if I had to, And a lot of times when they're goofing around, I'd see them goofing around. I just look at them, and they turn around and go, "Oh," and they go back to work or whatever. And I wouldn't say anything because I wouldn't want to embarrass them if I could help it. So I just give them the eye,
Yep.
and that was all it took. And I was serious about stuff. My thing was first we're gonna work hard, then we'll go play hard. But we can't go play
Yeah.
hard until after we worked hard. That's kind of the order it goes in. So as long as we keep it in that order, we'll have a lot of fun together. We'll do a lot of neat things together and all that. Like I said, the first day of school, a lot of them just sat there. They weren't sure what to expect or whatever. And I would tell them, I appreciate kids who talk. If you don't talk, I don't know what you're thinking as much. Don't be afraid to talk. Just know when it's right
Right.
to talk and when it's not right to talk. And everything
Right.
will be fine. And the first day of school also, I would go out on the playground because I had plenty of stuff for them to do in the classroom. And I get a football and I start throwing the football with some of the boys. And even boys from different classes throwing the football. No teachers ever did that. So that was like that made you an okay person right away. And that's somebody
Yeah.
they could talk to or they could relate to or whatever. Um, Kids would tell me, "Hey, Mr. Hopkins, I'm pitching tonight in my Little League game." "Oh, hey, good luck. Hope you have a great game." Next day, I pull a chair over when the kids are doing something. "Hey, how'd the game go last night? How'd your pitching do?" Just talk to them privately, Well, I was doing okay, and then I lost my control, and I, or whatever, they tell you what happened, in their Little League game, and all those things were just things that basically said, "I care." That's all a lot of it was. A lot of the teachers knew nothing about the kids other than, you know, what they did in class. A lot of them didn't know the kids' last names. A lot of them only know, "Oh, that's Johnny P. and that's Susie J." Like that's how they keep their records, whatever. Ugh. For me, I want to know their names, where they lived, all kinds of stuff, and their backgrounds and what they want to do in the future.
Yeah. That little bit makes a whole huge difference in a person's world.
It really does. And by the end of the year, you had a lot of kids that like they'd come a long way, they had learned an awful lot. A lot of this learning showed up at home too, I'm sure. They were more responsible. We talked about that as part of these journal things too, and the posters we had about
Hmm.
responsibility and doing the right thing and all that. So when we had when we had our sixth grade end of the year ceremony, our principal would always say, "Now let's remember, this is not a graduation; it's a promotion." Because all they're being promoted to junior high school, right? And that was
Right.
because he didn't want the parents to go overboard. We had parents back then that would rent limousines for the kids.
What?
All kinds of stuff. Girls coming in beautiful formal dresses, some of the boys in tuxedos and things like that. So what I would do, they would have a little program, and then one by one, the teachers would introduce their class to come up and get their certificate, and usually shake hands and all that, and going back to their seat and all that. So this used to irritate the heck out of the other sixth grade teachers. It was two men, and it irritated the heck out of them, and I loved it every time. I would bring my gown and my cap from my master's degree program to school, and I'd hang it up in the back of the stage. And when the second teacher was introducing his class, I'd get up and just quietly walk around out the back door and walk around, put on my gown, my cap, and I'd hear the principal out there. He always fell for it. He'd go, "Well, our next class will be Mr. Hopkins' class." "Mr. Hopkins?" And he'd look around. "Mr. Hopkins?" I'd walk out onto the stage in my cap and gown, and the whole place would just crack up. They just, yeah, and that was their. These other two teachers got furious. They were they got so mad. And I'd walk up to the microphone, and the first thing I'd say, "Please remember, this is a promotion and not a graduation." And I told the kids, I told them, "Hey, I wear this because this is you for you to model in the future. You're gonna someday. I want you to be wearing this. This show you how you progress
Yeah.
someday." But anyway, and after we're done, all the parents wanted to take my picture in the cap and gown, and we had all kinds of fun with it. And that's of course what ticked off the other teachers so much. But anyway, we had when I tried to say something about every kid, just not just read the name, but say something about their personality, their athletic ability, or I'm impressed by this or that or something. And one of the teachers walked up after me one year, and this was a lady, and she goes, "I will not be saying anything about each of my students because they already know how I feel about them." And and
Mm.
I thought that was awesome because now you just made yourself look like a fool. I mean, kind of
Yeah.
like. So lots of fun over the years, lots of stuff. Our school, I can think of so many things, but the more I go, our school back then we did not have a marquee, but you know what a marquee is, right? Like in a theater, a marquee where it puts up the titles of the films. No,
Yeah.
the high schools had them, but nobody else had them. So they were gonna take one down at somewhere, and I asked them if I could have it, and they said sure. But the school district said, "No, we don't want a secondhand item or whatever here." So one of the dads from another classroom was a firefighter, and he said, "I'll build one." So he built this marquee. We mounted it in front of the school. We were the only elementary school in the district that had this. We bought a set of the letters. They were like 6 inches high and had little
Mhm.
tracks, and we put up messages. So since we had put it up, I kept all the letters in our classroom. And every couple of weeks or week, whenever it was time to change, a new event, a new day, a new time, I would give the kids a piece of paper with the message and say, "Go at it." And they would go back and take out all the letters they're supposed to get out for the message. They'd go out and the custodian would let them borrow a little step ladder. It had a key and a lock so people couldn't, get into it. They'd unlock it, take down all the old letters, put up all the new letters, get them all set, eyeball them, make sure they look good. Then they'd close the thing up and lock it. And then it got to be lunchtime, I'd walk out and double check it. Once in a while, they'd misspell something, but we'd let them do stuff all on their own. A lot of people, the teacher had to do it, or they didn't trust the kids, or it was that type of thing. And I found out teaching, the kids can do way, way more than we gave them credit for. So part of the deal
Mhm.
was to allow them to do all kinds of things that normally would be done by the adults, and
Mhm.
let them feel some sense of accomplishment or some sense of inclusion or pride, whatever the case might be. So that was another lesson, was the old marquee and things like that. One year I put up a message that said, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. And above that, it said a Christmas message and had all these letters. And people were stopping in front of the school in their cars, looking at it. The parents were asking, "What does that message say?" Some of the teachers, "What does that message say?" The principal, "What'd you put that up for?" He didn't understand it. Well, the message was there was no L.
Oh, oh my gosh.
So it was a Christmas message. And
Nice.
yeah, we had fun with it. We had doing things like that. And then when people went, "Oh, okay, okay." But I don't know, just had a lot of fun doing a lot of stuff. Like the marquee in the classroom, I had a little part of the classroom, I had a sign like on TV or like in the movies where it said coming attractions.
Mm,
And I always had little signs up there about what the class was going to be doing pretty soon. Because I learned somewhere along the way that as long as there was something coming up fun that we're going to do, they were on board for it. They were okay. They got
right.
bored or they got disinterested when there nothing they thought was, coming up fun. But as long as there was something fun going on, then that made the whole experience a lot easier, a lot better, and easier to get along with them, things like that. So, excuse me, lots of ideas, lots of creativity, lots of thinking, putting up things, rethinking them, fine tuning them, all kinds of different things. One year remember we talked a while back about special features in news. One day, a girl in the classroom who had connections brought in the biggest star on the local professional soccer team to our classroom to meet the kids and do questions and answers with them. And he spent about 30 minutes with the kids. He was the big name in San Diego, the top scorer, all this stuff. He was from a foreign country too. He spoke English. His name was Bronco Segota. And when he was done, he was walking in and down the hallway at school. Look at him. Oh, he wore his team warm-up suit to the school too,
Mm.
with a team name on it and stuff. So all the kids were like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa!" A lot of times we were, people were, I don't want to say jealous. Now, it wasn't why we did it. It's just that people were like, like stunned or whatever we were doing, something that was, nobody else did. So that made it fun too. Just, I got going for a long time. What is it? 8:30 at night now. Anyway, when I got to this school, to show you how different things were, by the way, there was a teacher at the school who, if the kids got into an argument, two boys got into an argument, he had sets of boxing gloves, and they would go out behind the library, and he would let these kids duke it out until one of them gave up. He would let them actually fight.
Was that legal?
He got away with it. I know
That's
that he got away with it. Um,
wow.
when I first started in
Would
1972, they still gave physical corporal punishment. And I know the principal, when I first started in 1972, had three or four wooden paddles up on his wall, hung up on hooks.
mm-hmm.
And they would have some kid that was causing problems, maybe bullying people or whatever. And they talked to the kid, that didn't work. They talked to the teacher had talked to him, the parents had talked to him, nothing would work. This kid just wouldn't settle down or wouldn't, play by the rules. So they'd say, "I think it's time for you to get a paddling." And the big tough kids would be, they'd be crying and bawling their eyes out. They had to send home they'd call the parent first, I think. And the parents, would okay it. And then there was a little piece of paper. The principal had to sign the paper that he had paddled the kid, and they had to have a witness sign the paper who had watched it happen. And they usually have them put their hands over the desk and give them like a couple swats, and they weren't the hard swats; they were real medium-ish. But the kids, they'd cry and cry and carry on. And to be honest, sometimes that helped. Um, I had many parents tell me at conferences, listen, my kid gets out of line, you have my permission to whack his butt. You slap his butt. And I'd have to say, well, I'm sorry, we're not allowed to do that anymore, sir, but I'll try and help solve the problem some other way with him. But I think
Right, yeah. Yeah, oh my goodness. That's
the
some
parent
stories
con
there.
well, I got a lot of stories. The parent conferences, I hope you're going to be able to edit all this. The parent conferences, we'd schedule them for 20 minutes each with 10 minutes in between in case one went over or you need to kind of change paperwork and stuff. Then we put two chairs outside of our classroom so that for the next people were there could sit down. A lot of the teachers would just say, you know, Ralph is a nice boy, but if he worked harder, he could actually achieve more. He doesn't spend all of his time in his work and blah 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 blah. So every single kid got the parent got home, they go, your teacher says you could be working harder. That was just like everybody gave out that message, type thing. And
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of bunk. So I would well first let's see, I have to go back on one thing. When the kids goofed around in class, first thing I did is I put a little check mark on the board. The second time, they got what's called a See Me card, and it was a 4x6 index card. They had to write down on it the date, the time, what I did wrong in a
Hmm.
sentence, which classroom rule I violated, and what I can do to ensure this never happens again. And after school, I'd read them just to make sure they're accurate. Okay, you're free to go, and they'd go. But I filed all these cards in a little box. So the parents that come in, they say, well, how is Stephen behaving? And so if Stephen had none of these cards, I'd say, well, he and I get along great. I think he's really doing a good job, whatever. I'd say, well, let me show you some examples. Boom, boom, boom. I put out these cards in front of the parent, and they're in the kid's handwriting. They'd read them. Oh, oh, oh. And so I didn't have to tell the parents how the kids were behaving. It was right there in front of
Right.
them. So there was that. And then I always made sure I had their achievement tests scores with me. And I'd say, has the school ever shared Susie's achievement scores with you? And they'd say, well, no. Well, usually they'd send them home if the parents didn't know what they were. Say, well, here's her score sheet. Now, do you know what this means, these numbers? They'd say, no, I don't. And I'd say, well, let me explain. This number means this. This number means that. Oh, okay, okay. So I said, her score here says that she scored better than 80% of all the other children that took the test. So obviously 80 is a
Hmm.
very good score. Oh, so that's what that means. Some of them it was a little difficult. Well, he scored 20. That means he scored better than 20% or 20 of the 100 kids that took this. Oh, yeah. Anyway, I would try and make sure when they went home, they had information with them other than just, you got to try harder. That they can sit down, I saw your test scores, blah, blah, blah. I saw you've been misbehaving in class sometimes. Or, they went home with something other than just, nothing. And I gave them kids papers to take home with them. The worst one ever, this just came to my mind. I had a rowdy little guy named make sure I get this well. His name's not important. During this special project thing, special feature and news thing,
Hmm.
he brought a vibrator to school.
Oh no.
Yes.
That's embarrassing to the family too.
Well, so how did Mr. Hopkins handle that? I saw it ahead of time and I said, hey, so and so, step outside for a minute. And I think we might have already had sex education by then. I said, do you know what this is? And he said, well, no. And I said, well, let me tell you. I whispered in his ear. His eyes got really big. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to put this in my desk. And today, after school, when we get out of school, you come and ask me for it. I'll give it to you. You take it home. Got it? Yeah, I got it. Okay. First day, didn't take it home. Second day, hey, don't forget. Oh, yeah, yeah. Didn't take it home. whenever it was, a week later, it's parent conference time. You probably see what's
Oh,
coming.
oh, yep, yep.
I said, "Oh, by the way, Mrs. So-and-so," I said, "your son brought this to school." And I said, "He did not have a chance to share it, but I said was able to get it ahead of time." And I said, "I've been keeping it in my desk, asking him to please take it home for 2 weeks, and he keeps forgetting." I said, "I'll go ahead and give that to you now." And this mother her face just just melted.
Oh,
You can imagine. So anyway, stories and
she's,
stories and stories.
I wonder where she really thought that thing was at the house that she was looking for
Well,
it for a couple
or
of
how
weeks.
he got into it, or to find it.
Gotcha. Yeah, is that what it, that, yeah, my gosh.
Yeah, he was a interesting little kid, very good athlete, really a good athlete, but kind of a wild little guy. And I followed him for a little while. He actually became a teacher for a while, and he was teaching history at a local high school, but he was also the varsity baseball coach. And apparently, he was so, I guess, strict or something with the baseball players. He got fired after the first year as a baseball coach. And I looked him up recently, and I think he's back in some Midwest country now, Midwest state. I don't know. His family was big into golf. His
Hmm.
older brother's a pro golfer. His father was a pro golfer, and he was, I'm sure, trying to be big in golf too. But anyway, that was the kid with the vibrator.
Wow, that's great. Oh my goodness. Oh, we're definitely gonna have to bring you back on for some more stories. That's for sure. Maybe have some of your class come on too.
We have
Uh
to do it in somebody else's house. My house is, I have a not very well kept house. That's why the beautiful background of these children sitting on the grass under a blue cloudy sky is there. Um, it would be fun to bring a couple of students on. I don't know what all they'd tell you, but it wouldn't. And I might be out of stories. Who knows? Maybe I can't come up with any more. But
yeah, we'll have to bring them on and see what comes out of that.
I got a couple that live close to me that are. I would know one of them lives 100 miles away. When he was in class as a sixth grader, I had his brother the year before, and his brother was like the school's punching bag. All the kids would come up and hit him all the time, and seriously, hit him and punch him all the time. And he would get real upset and start crying and stuff like that. So he had gone on to middle school, and here comes his younger brother in my class. Well, the younger brother decided, nah, I'm not taking any of that crap like my brother did. And
Mhm.
this kid, the younger one, he actually got up at 4 or 4:30 in the morning, met a neighbor with a milk truck back in the day. They drove to the dairy, picked up loads of milk, and then until it was time to go to school, this kid rode around with this neighbor, ran up and took the milk into people's houses. He worked 2 or 3 hours a day before school started.
Wow.
So that was the younger brother. And he didn't, if anybody tried to fight with him, he fought back. He didn't take stuff off these people. Anyway, he got out of sixth grade and his family moved down to another part of the county, and I didn't have in touch with him. One day, and his dad was a real hard to get along with guy that was married 3 or 4 times and threw the older brother out of the house one time and all a bad scene. Anyway, the younger brother one time calls me up. Hey, he said, this is John. He said, I just got a job at a pizza place here. I'm delivering pizza. And he goes, I remember in your car you had a spotlight. And I did. I think you plug in your cigarette lighter. It was a real bright light. He goes, you know,
Hmm.
when I'm delivering pizzas, sometimes it's hard to see the address on the house. He goes, do you suppose I could borrow that spotlight from you? And I said, well, sure, come on over. And he knew where my house was. He came over and I gave him the spotlight. Well, that was his way, I think, of saying, I want you back in my life, I think is what it kind of was. He went on to finally try and join the army because he had no other future. They assigned him, of all things, to go on the top of these communication poles, and he's afraid of heights. And he completely freaked out, which when he freaks out, it's big time. They actually let him out of the army with a discharge because he freaked out so badly about his assignment of going up on these poles. Anyway, he came back into San Diego, decided to be a police officer. And he went to a police academy here where he paid his own way through. I helped him through a lot of the coursework, working on things, helping on things, or just giving him thoughts on what he was writing for his assignments. He passed that and got hired in Coronado, a city here in San Diego. So I went on ride-alongs with him many times. Went to his house many times. He's now been married 3 times. But anyway, I've been with him through all these 3 times, and I'm actually like he considers me part of his family now. And he's about 50 some years old now, 57, something like that. He's got a job now. He's the director of security for Mattel Industries. And Mattel is huge. They're all over the world. So now he's flying all over the US to check on the security at their different factories and warehouses. And he told me another year or two they're flying to China to check on their interests over there. So that I'm and most holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, 4th of July, all those times, I drive the 100 miles up to his house and spend it with his family, which, like I said, it's kind of become my family. There's nobody down here anymore that gets along well, so
So pretty
I,
much you're still at
I,
uncle.
well,
Like,
yeah, I still head up to his house, and there were times even during his marriages and stuff where he'd call for advice or things like that. He'd get in trouble at work once in a while for doing things. He'd call me and tell me what happened. The best one was over in Coronado. It's a community of retired Navy admirals and elderly people for the most part. Beautiful homes, very expensive, and it's all in a flat city that's surrounded by the ocean and the bay. And it's a small police department, not very big. So there was one old lady that apparently all the police officers, she was not a good driver, and they'd pulled over many times and written her tickets and stuff like that. She'd get all upset. So one day he pulls her over and she gets mad at him and says, "I'll bet that for this ticket you're going to get some kind of a reward." And without missing a beat, he said, "Well, yes, ma'am." He says, "As a matter of fact, when I write you this ticket," he says, "I'm getting a brand new toaster." And she blew up, called the police department. "Are you giving him a toaster because he gave his name?" So I think he got suspended for 3 days and got in a little trouble, but he's got that kind of a sense of humor and all that. So anyway, and his family
okay.
though I watched his sons grow up, watched them get married, watched them have their own kids now. It's watched the whole extended family grow. So it's been a quite a neat experience to participate in, even though I don't have my own.
Yeah. You know what? Maybe you're like a Mr. Feeney from Boy Meets World.
Well, I remember the show a little bit.
He was the
Uh,
teacher that always was there for
oh,
every kid.
oh, okay. If that's what he was, I'll take the title. Um,
Yeah, Mr.
the,
Feeney, big title. Like, or
the kid that played on that was from the Wonder Years, Kevin Arnold on
yeah,
Wonder Years, whatever his real name was. That Wonder Years was a great show. Certain shows that have been on, I notice I don't seem to like the families that argue all the time and all that. I like the families that are oddball families. Malcolm in the Middle, I thought was a hilarious show. Uh,
yeah.
some of these shows that show these bizarre things happening. Even Young Sheldon was really good. Uh,
You know, I like that one too. Now they have a new one where Georgie and what's her name, they have their own separate show.
yeah,
Uh,
and that's just starting off. I hope that'll be as good. The part about it that I think they need to be careful about is the mother-in-law who doesn't like Georgie. If
Yeah.
they push her role too far, like not liking him, that's going to get old real quick. But anyway, that's off our topic, but it's kind of something that came up.
Yeah. Well, what the episode I watched, the last one that they just did, she kind of apologized, quote unquote. You know what I mean? So they
Right.
brought her back a little bit. And he's like,
They're
yeah, okay, come back a little bit.
they're probably going to tone her down a little bit. I didn't watch Young Sheldon for the first years it was on. I if the shows are on certain nights of the week, I'm always gone and I don't see them. And then I go back and I like All in the Family, the same thing. I never saw All in the Family until it was almost over. And then I realized, oh my God, this was a great show. The issues they
Right?
tackled, the Archie character, Edith, and all that, and Meathead and all these people. So the same thing happened with certain other shows, and Young Sheldon was one of them. So now I've gone on Paramount Plus and I've started watching Young Sheldon from the first year
Yep.
and started watching it develop. Okay, now and it's funny back then too. It's
Yep.
funny back then too. They had one the other day where his sister Missy. I to say this on TV, it shows the changes in our times. Do you know that the first toilet ever shown on TV was on a Leave It to Beaver episode
Really?
when Wally or Beaver bought a little baby alligator at an alligator farm, and they called him
Uh-huh.
Mr. Jack, and they didn't know what to do with him, so he had to be in the water, so they put him in the toilet. And that was the first time a toilet was allowed to be shown on TV. On the I Love Lucy show, Lucy and Ricky could not sleep in the same bed. I don't know if you realize that. They had twin beds, and you could
I
not
did not realize.
you
I knew
could
she
not
couldn't get pregnant, but she
you could
defied the.
not show two people in a bed together back then. Times have really changed. But on one of these early episodes of Young Sheldon, Missy got mad. Missy and Sheldon shared this bedroom,
Yeah.
and they're about 7 or 8 years old, and Missy says, "I'm going to kick you in the balls," and Sheldon says, "That won't do any good. They haven't dropped yet." And back to her,
Yeah.
and then the adult voiceover. The
Yeah.
adult voiceover was, "For the record, they didn't drop until I was 15." And she's uh, that TV's different now. It's not what it used to be when I was a kid. You know.
Yeah, and the family dynamics of
Oh,
how
yeah. Oh yeah.
the roles in the family were back then and now completely changed.
Well, the lady that plays Mima, Annie Potts, she's really, really good, and all the little wisecracks she throws at the dad, and I mean,
Yeah,
the
I love
show
her.
is really well written, and that's what
Yeah.
I'm hoping that young Georgie will be well written too, because all the little remarks were really clever and just bing, 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 like uh, oh, I don't know,
Yeah.
all the stuff about Georgie uses his sink for a bathroom and all this other stuff, and you'd hear all this stuff. No, anyway.
Yeah, and then the mom, Roseanne's sister, well, in the show, Jackie, I believe that was her actual daughter in real life that played her. Because I was like, I
Oh,
knew she looked familiar. Like, uh,
yeah, well, they're bringing back some characters from Young Sheldon. I never watched. What was the other show? Um, that it came. Young Sheldon came from another show.
oh, The Big Bang Theory.
Um, I never watched that once. No, I've never seen an episode. But yet I
Really?
enjoy Young Sheldon, and I don't know if The Big Bang Theory could have been as good as that because it had all the adult humor, or the adult little snide
Well,
remarks. I don't know.
that's where it came from was
Right.
Sheldon.
He's
That's the same character, literally the same guy that plays in that voiceover when he's talking. That's the same guy that does the actual Sheldon um in The Big Bang Theory. They just go off of them, put him into, oh, this is how he
right.
became this
Yeah.
character in that. And
Wow. Well, anyway, it was a good day. Tonight, we have a professional hockey team in San Diego. It's one level below the National Hockey League. It's called the American Hockey League. Our team has had the same name forever, called the San Diego Gulls, like seagulls.
Mhm.
Many years ago, there was a league we were in where they had a team called the Anchorage Aces. Do you remember
Oh,
that?
yeah, yeah, they just, yeah, I
And in
know about.
fact, they might still have a team called that. but it's in
I
a different league. So our Gulls used to go to Anchorage one time a year. They played 2 games in 2 nights. The
mhm.
Anchorage Arena was always sold out. It held like 6,000 people. It was always sold out. They would always beat us, and then they'd come home. But anyway, tonight is their second home game. I couldn't go the first night because it was a high school football night, and I was there covering my team. So
Okay.
I missed my tickets for the first night. But tonight they play at 6 o'clock, and again at tomorrow they play whoever they're playing. Anyway, so it's been fun.
Yes, I
Thank
appreciate.
you for the opportunity. I couldn't help but look at you most of the time on the picture, so I'm not looking up at my picture. I probably will be looking down a little bit most of the time, but oh well. The
Oh no,
microphone worked.
you're good. It's kind of hard to with Zoom to pay attention to the like looking forward because you're like literally looking up, and I can't like I personally can't see anything else on when I'm looking up. So I'd like
Okay.
to look at the person who's talking, so it looks weird, but
And I tried to sometimes bring something into the picture to demonstrate something too, or like the plaque and stuff, so that at least it would come on your screen. So anyway,
yeah,
well, if
no,
it was
I
good, thank
appreciate.
you. I appreciate it. If it was bad, blame Steven. No.
No,
And see, that's another kid that came out of nowhere. I hadn't seen him since sixth grade, and all of a sudden he calls me up, and I'm by that time I'm like 70 years old and retired for 10 years, and here comes Stephen
wow,
Joyner out of the past. So
wow,
that's the crazy stuff that happens.
yeah,
Um, Hard to explain. Well, if you look at your email, I sent a picture of myself from 1973, 74, maroon jacket, aviator glasses, longish hair. You'll crack up. And if you put that on the screen part of the time during the talking about the early days, where people, I think people will get a laugh out of that. But I thought I sent a second one. I can't remember what it was. Oh, I sent my high school annual picture, what I looked like
okay,
when I was in 12th grade myself.
okay,
So you'll see that the newest as a teacher, and they'll see me now as a retired for 10 years, 75-year-old.
okay, yeah. We'll have to see how we can put that in there then.
Yep,
It's
sounds
pretty
good.
cool.
Well, thank
All,
you. I guess it's time to sign off.
all right. Thank you.
Do we just say goodbye and turn off all the electronics?
Yeah, sure. But if do you have anything that you want to tell the new teachers or the new journalists or anything like nuggets
Well,
to
prob
imprint?
probably not, only because of the fact that times have changed so much that I don't know what teaching is like now enough to tell them that stuff, you know? Um,
Mm-hmm.
about about all I can say, if you want me to say it now, you can splice it in. About the only advice I can think of for people that are entering teaching today would be to stay calm, be real, be yourself. Don't be afraid to let the kids see that you are a real human being. When people try to push your buttons or get you angry, be calm about things, but firm. Set the standards in your classroom to where the kids know what they can do and what they can't do, what they are welcome to do, and when they cross the line, they know it. And I think you'll probably get along as well as possible. It's not an easy job. The parents play a large role in things. I'm sure that you'll have some parents that love you and some that might come in with questions and concerns. So, do your best, make what you can of it, and enjoy the time you have, with your kids. Try and get to know them. Try and get to maybe be a person that is especially interested in their life and wants them to know that you care. And I think that's probably the best way to make for a happy classroom, a good career, that type of thing.
Oh, definitely. Thank you so much for your time, your efforts, and your stories, everything. We'll have to really bring on the students on the, if they'll be willing to do that, to come on and share their portion with you as well, and whatnots.
I'd have to find some. Maybe we could do something where we'd be in one location and bring 3 or 4 kids in and take turns, coming on with you to
Yeah.
say memories or some. Maybe a couple times we sit close, we discuss things or whatever, and then maybe certain times they'd come on and tell things. They remember funny stuff. They remember things that I've forgotten. And one of my very, very best friends knew their family so well, loved these people. They're wonderful mother. There was a single mother during the time that I knew them, and so good with her kids and everything like that. And this kid, we were friends for years afterwards. And one time something happened. He says, "I remember one time you yelled at me." I said, "Sergio, is that the only memory you have of all the stuff we've done? Oh my gosh!" But that's how it is sometimes. They'll remember something that you've forgotten. So it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess we'll end it here, and we'll make sure that everything gets out and your story gets out as well.
I hope it's not too big of an editing job.
No, it's all good.
Okay, as long
It's
as
all good.
yeah. Now, do you edit on like an iMovie or how do you edit?
I have a couple different programs that I
Okay.
edit on.
Okay.
Um,
I
yeah.
I made an iMovie one time and that took some real time and thinking to do that. And that was like a 3-minute movie.
Yeah. Oh
So,
yeah. Me and editing, it'll take me days because I can't look at the screen for that long for,
oh,
those headaches and all that. I'm like, oh, it is what it is. But so I started doing different things. Like I'll take little clips or little things out of the whatever the video, and then I'll just kind of have that little section, and just put it out there, and stuff like that as well. But I always have the big video, the unedited version. So anything that, make sure everything, like in journalism, making sure all the
right.
the notes are there. Like,
Uh,
you
how
know.
many complete shows have you done so far?
Ooh. Over the last 4 years, definitely over 20. I can tell you that. It's
Yeah,
I've
that's a
done,
lot of work.
yeah.
And does your work go up on a network somewhere where people can select your show out of the choices?
Right now it's on YouTube.
Oh,
If
it's
you
on YouTube.
YouTube, and then I'll put little clips, because Facebook, well, I'll put it on the Facebook. It has I can put the YouTube link
There you go.
on the Facebook for the full thing, and then I can put little clips on Facebook as well. But Instagram and TikTok, they only want a certain amount of minutes, so
Okay.
I'll do that and then do that link to where, okay, you can find the full video on YouTube.
Okay, good. That's cool.
Yeah, so
That's
far that's how I'm getting it done.
that's
Like,
smart. That's smart. That's good. And my microphone worked. I wasn't sure if it would work or not. Plugged it in, turned it on, and wow. So I'm set up for a podcast in the future. When Steven first put me on, I thought, what in the hell, Steven? Yeah. What do you want me to talk about? The 2020 election, I was talking, I think shared with you maybe before with that Jack Halloran guy. And
mhm.
so I bought the microphone. I go, well, if the sound has to come from up on my computer, it's probably going to be bad quality or you won't be able to hear it. Well, about I'll just buy a little microphone. That way I'm sure that hopefully the sound is good quality on your end. So,
Yeah, it's actually really good for what that
and
is.
and you're coming through just fine too. This was like $15. It has a plug it into the jack and away it goes. Well, anyway, have a good evening in Alaska. What's the
Hey, see you
temperature today up there?
I want to say it's like 30 something, but tons of snow. I think we've got about 10 inches of snow at this point. It's Christmas, technically. Those beautiful snow days that you want on Christmas with your hot
Right.
chocolate or your coffee and the pajamas, and you don't go anywhere. Yeah, we still drive out in that. But
Yeah.
it says, but today, is that Christmas day after where the snow stopped, but everything just stayed. Like
That's good. That's good. The
it's kind of,
down here in California, they got their first snow in the mountains too the last couple of days.
oh wow.
Mammoth Mountain is the most well-known one, but Alaska up there, it's a lot of it's just beautiful. I know it's tough to get out and be outdoors in sometime, but beauty-wise, the mountains, the trees, everything covered, the rivers and lakes frozen over, and it's pretty spectacular.
Yep. And I'm not moving out of here. Like,
Oh, you're not. Okay, well, that's good. I'm probably not moving out of San Diego, so no, I know. We're spoiled down here. We get a little rain and people get all upset and there's car accidents all over the freeways and all this and or the wind blows a little bit and everybody gets, oh my God, you know,
yeah,
it doesn't take much to get them all wound up in San Diego.
yeah, they
Well,
do that here with the snow. I mean, they've had a million accidents and special people driving, and somehow we're like, it's winter. What did you expect? We do this every year.
you
It's not nothing new.
well, you put special tires on the cars, right?
We have studded, yeah, we can get studded tires, and then we have to plug in our cars for negative, when it goes into -20.
Yes, I saw them do that up in Mammoth before too. I guess it'll freeze the engine block and it
Yep.
blows out the plugs on your car. There's some plugs that blows out, and if you start
Yep.
your engine up, it'll ruin your engine.
Yep. Been
Destroy
there.
it. Yeah, and they would
Yeah.
hire. Some people did it as a business. They'd come over with their blower and set it up for you and things like that, so that your car would be safe and different lifestyle. Well, I'm going to head off and start getting ready for hockey. Uh,
Right. Have fun.
you have a great afternoon and great evening up there. You're
Uh,
about almost 5 o'clock though. So,
it's 2:54.
oh, you're earlier. Duh. I'm not teaching, so like that's another teacher thing. They make a mistake and they go, Mrs. So and so, you made a mistake, and they go, I just wanted to see if you're paying attention. That's an old
Oh yeah.
teacher cliche too. You know.
Yep.
Anyway, I'm gonna click out. So have a good one.
All right. Thanks, you too. All
Bye.
right. Bye.